It's always a great day to wear the orange. This is Frank. That's Carrie. This is the House Foreign Sports Channel. We're going to talk some football tonight. We got an hour. We're ready to go. We're action packed. We're ready to rock and roll. Make sure you hit the thumbs up. Make sure you hit that share. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're one of those you've checked out the channel and you have not subscribed, this thing's on the road to 3,000. I'd like to hit that by the end of the year. And if you want to say thanks as well, those super chat options, they are available tonight. If the money's rolling in, we'll keep on rolling. But let's get right in this thing, man. We're just going to cut right to the chase on it. The big news of the weekend, obviously, Nico Iamaleava. We come out for the second half Saturday night. And Gaston Moore is at the helm. Gaston Moore is there. You were in attendance. What was the mood like in the stadium when realized that Gaston Moore was in and Nico was out for the game?
People were pissed. Like, it was, where's Nico? Where's Nico? Where's Nico? At that point, Twitter wouldn't update, so I had no clue what was going on. There was a very drunk, obnoxious student that sat in front of me and a few seats over that yelled at everything possible. Every formation we did, every time we ran the ball and we didn't get 10 yards, he screamed. Like, he was very, very entertaining the entire night until he eventually left. He was by himself, which was the sad part, and he literally screamed at Heupel and everybody and Gaston Moore and Nico, and if you named it, he probably got mad about it. But when good things happen, he kept his mouth shut. So he basically did kind of sum up the entire mood around Nico going out. Nobody knew what was going on. Because it's not like Heupel, even if we were killing them, just to run out Gaston in the first series. Heupel would have definitely went with Nico the first series if he was just planning on benching him the rest of the game. So you definitely kind of got the sense of like, hey, something's wrong, but we didn't know to the extent of what it was. Everybody was saying stuff, oh, he's got a concussion, oh, he's got a shoulder injury, oh, he's going to the hospital. And there was just a whole bunch of speculation going around the student section, and nobody was happy. I was very disappointed, very upset.
Have you heard for sure what it is?
No. I don't think
I haven't either. I've heard speculation that it's cut. I've heard all the same things that you have. I mean, the one thing that would lead me to believe it's concussion was there was the video of him walking off his parents and he had the like towel or stuff over his head, which could be coincidental.
He always has the towel over his head. He doesn't necessarily have his head down, but a lot of the time on the sidelines and stuff, he has the towel over his head. That's just kind of his thing. So you never really know what to bring of it.
No, I mean, because you look at Nico's was considered upper body. Dante Thornton was considered upper body as well. So were those injuries similar or what? And, of course, Gaston Moore comes in. What was your assessment of Gaston Moore's performance?
I mean, it was as good as expected. I mean, if he gets pass interference caused that much, I think he should play a lot more. It kind of felt like watching the Titans and just having Mason Rudolph run the offense. That's what it kind of felt like. It was just kind of like lean on the run, try to get the short stuff, maybe take a shot every now and then, and just kind of hope that Gaston was serviceable, which he was. I mean, he did a good job. But I definitely don't feel like that's a game plan that you can roll out and beat Georgia with if he has to be the starting quarterback Saturday.
We'll talk about that later on. That's some pretty interesting thoughts there. I think you kind of foreseen some of mine as to where we go. But, as far as the game goes up to that point, I mean, to me, we talk about the injuries. Tennessee's injuries Saturday night, it was like, It was your main guys. I mean, Nico, Dylan Sampson goes out for a little bit. Dante Thornton goes out. James Pierce goes out for a little bit. Spraggins goes out for a little bit. I feel like I'm forgetting some along the way as well. That's really your tier of players you don't want to go out. Nope. Not that you want anybody injured, but it's definitely not those. I mean, talking about the injury with Nico and Gaston Moore, you kind of alluded to it there as well if we get to it. Are you one of those that, as you go into this week, you would feel comfortable with Gaston Moore at the helm?
No, I would not. That was the most he's ever played in his college career, was second half against Mississippi State. If he has to go out and play an entire game at Georgia, and that's his first ever game is in Athens, a night game, a game that's kind of leading towards a blackout for them. I mean, I saw their Barstool page posted to wear black, so they may even bring out the black jerseys this week. We don't really know what to expect from them. It's going to be an awesome environment, and I definitely don't want Gaston Moore making his first career start in that kind of environment. That's just a nightmare.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a big difference. I think there's a difference between being a manager of the team, or being able to manage the offense versus being able to make some of these big plays. And the fact that Nico finally, he hits Squirrel White on the first possession, they convert a fourth down, Squirrel White catches it, Nico puts it on the money. That was a pretty good sign. And then of course he hits the bomb to Dante Thornton later on. He did miss a couple. I mean, he wasn't perfect the other night, but I think there's been strides in the game. I said I was going to get in. We're going to talk Mississippi State a little bit here as we get going. Again, make sure you hit that thumbs up, you share, you subscribe to the channel. Those are the big things to help us out along the way. And, there are the super chats available. Those do go to help support the channel. The more those come in tonight, the more we'll keep on rolling on here. But I want to talk to offense a little bit. We've talked the offense a lot this year, but does it feel to you? I think I can answer for you, but maybe not here. Does it feel to you it's like every time you get confident in this offense, like, all right, it's starting to come together. Then here we go. A fumble, a penalty, a sack. Of course, they didn't give up any sacks the other night, but a penalty, another Dylan Sampson fumble, 3 games in a row. Do you think it's mental? What do you think the deal is? I mean, is there even any answer for it right now?
I think it's happening on such a big level across the whole board that it's kind of hard to get an answer for it. You can clean up the penalties, you can clean up the fumbles, you can clean up the miscommunication, but it's hard to get all 3 of those cleaned up in a week. There'll definitely be some struggles this week, but I don't think it's going to be as bad as it has been the past 3 games. I think it would take multiple NFL linebackers tackling Dylan Sampson to rip the ball out of him this Saturday. That's just not going to happen. I know he realizes that Tennessee does not win this game on Saturday night unless he definitely carries the team. You can't just rely on Nico. Nico can play out of his mind, but Tennessee still doesn't win if Dylan Sampson doesn't perform like we know he's capable of, and that means not putting the ball on the ground and not making stupid mistakes. And it also just depends on the offensive line. You can't jump offside, or you can't have a false start. You can't have cheap holding calls. If you get beat, you get beat. Just let Nico try to make a play if you can. It's just you got to realize that there's other guys behind you, and they can make up for your mistakes. And when you go down to Athens, the last thing you need to do is just fall on the ground on your face after a holding call because you just let a guy completely beat you.
Yeah. I mean, that's it, man. It's just like they just can't get out of their own way, and you can't do that this week. This is the game this week. If you do it again, it's going to cost you the game.
Yeah.
This week. I don't think there's any doubt about it. Did you think – now, my thoughts were Dylan Sampson goes out hurt. He's kind of holding his leg going off. And then we see Cam Seldon right after that, after they've talked about, well, Cam Seldon's not going to play probably. He's going to redshirt. Were you aware of that at that point, I guess, what was going on? I know it's a little different being in the stands. Like I said, you can't get it to load. But did that bring any nervous feelings around when all Sampson out and all of a sudden here's Cam Seldon in after they're saying he's probably going to redshirt?
Yeah, I noticed that Seldon was in there. I was kind of shocked that he was kind of next in the pecking order. I thought they would strictly go with Sampson and Peyton Lewis. But I was definitely shocked to see Seldon in there. I don't know if he's necessarily gained that spot. I possibly would have gave those reps to Keith in that moment because Cam Seldon has done absolutely nothing to impress anybody at this point. So I was kind of disappointed to see the reps go his way.
Yeah, Heupel talked about him today, about Seldon, his quotes on him. And I've kind of wondered this the whole time. Let me find it here. on Cam Sell. He said as a young guy, he had to battle his way through some injuries early in spring ball, limiting some of what he's able to do during the course of training camp. Built his load, kind of get nicked up in the middle part of it and missed some time. Says young players will continue to get better. I love his attitude, his effort, his want to. He's a guy that's always in here watching extra film, so he's got a great future in front of him. He just has to continue to chase it. So, I mean, I've kind of wondered along the way if it was injury because he was out of the gates really the backup. And then, of course, you saw Deshaun Bishop doing his thing. Now Bishop's hurt, and Peyton Lewis is really kind of taking advantage, done some good things as well, even though on that touchdown, they got stopped at the goal line. From your view on it, were you in your normal section down kind of, what is that, toward the south end zone?
Yeah, I was down in there. I wasn't in E. I wasn't in my actual seat. I was probably 50 rows above where my actual seat was, just so I could sit with some friends. Because it was, I mean, I didn't want to sit in my actual seat just because it's too cramped down there, and I could spend some more times with some friends. But which did kind of stink because it was that side of the field was even further away. The side that the Peyton Lewis had that goal line drive with. Good kid. I mean, a lot of promise for him. I think he's a great running back. Definitely running back number 2. But it just kind of stunk. That drive kind of stunk because, I mean, Sampson definitely scores there if he didn't fumble the previous drive.
It was some weird play calling too, the way they went. And if I've seen some people say it, did Lewis have a chance to cut it outside and he didn't?
I'm not sure.
On that
I mean,
one, the fourth down.
I was really far away because I mean that's at the other goal line, so I was just mainly looking at did he get in? Because typically on those kind of plays, I look at okay, I didn't see him get tackled in the backfield, so I just look at the ref. That's basically all I look at, just to see if the ref throws his hands up, so I could kind of see what happened on the play, or I just straight up watch the video board.
Yeah, I hear you. I couldn't tell. I just thought they got stopped on it. Thought the play calling was a little bit weird the other night. What'd you think about the play calling?
When Nico was in there,
guess let me read it. Well, no, in general. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. When Nico was in there, I didn't expect us to run the ball necessarily as much as we did. I thought we'd for sure take more deep shots. I think I can count the 3, the one that he missed on the first drive, then the touchdown to Sampson, not Sampson, Squirrel, and then the touchdown to Thornton. And that's the only 3 that's really coming to my mind when Nico was in there. I actually thought the play calling when Gaston was in there was perfect. And the whole game management when Gaston was in the game was perfect. That can't be understated. Heupel did a great job considering the situation because that situation could have got a whole lot different. You could have tried to run the same exact offense and the same exact type of tempo that you do with Nico, and Gaston could have completely fumbled that game away if you weren't careful.
I kind of thought the offense was a little more wide open with Gaston in.
I think that, I mean, I'm not sure. They may have been more wide open in the play calling, but they just stood around and waited until the play clock got low. I mean, they took, what was it? Maybe I think it was the fourth quarter where they took the first 6 minutes off the clock in the fourth quarter. They just basically just stood around. So definitely totally different than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, I thought it was more of I seen some people use it like an air raid offense at that point. I thought they were going pretty open with it, which was interesting. Yeah, like I said, it was slower. I thought when Nico was in it, it was just odd. It was like they're either trying to hit it down the field or then, they have it or they run it and run it and run it. And I don't know. Play calling's been strange this year. There's been, a few games in a row I thought it was pretty wide open, and then they get, Mississippi State to me was not a defense to go conservative against.
I didn't think it was either.
So, I don't know. I thought the line was pretty good. Tennessee rushed for 240 yards, no sacks. There was times Gaston Moore had time to take a nap back there before he threw it. It's hard to say now. Obviously, those Bulldogs going to be quite a bit different than the Bulldogs coming up this week. But still, I thought that was positive. with it as well. I mean, the run game, other than the fumble, and it's hard. Where's this team at without Dylan Sampson? I mean, dude's a stud. It is what it is. I mean, each of his fumbles have been just running hard. He makes it's rarely ever a soft hit with him. I mean, that's it. But the offense, the biggest thing with them is going to be this week, take care of the football, make the plays that are there with you. What's up, Papa J? Papa J in the house. We just can't fumble inside the 10 anymore. That's been a killer. It has been a killer for sure. Let me hit a few of the people in here. There's the General. What's going on, General? Good to see you in here. Rhonda, good to see you in here tonight, Rhonda. Old buddy Blunt Vegas Fall in the house. What's going on, Blunt Vegas? And then we got Reese Winters. Reese Winters will like it when we talk special teams. He's been adamant and fired up on that Arkansas game, and I agree with him. But we'll definitely talk about that, and that'll get him going here in a little bit. And Sandra, what's going on, Sandra? It's good to see you in here tonight as well. Saw you comment earlier. Lady Vols with a big commitment tonight. Check that out, you guys, if you haven't already. But what's going on with this defense? What's going on with this teams all of a sudden being able to run the football like they have? Kentucky, Mississippi State coming in. Is that a concern? Is that an exception? Is it an outlier? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's necessarily a concern. I think it's just some things that they've switched up that we weren't really expecting teams to do. And it's also just falls on the defensive line, just kind of missing spots. Dominic Bailey said that today, that they just kind of went the wrong way in situations. They've kind of got undisciplined. And even as Cole Kubelik said, they nose guard or defensive tackle, however you want to say it, they kind of got too far left and right. And they didn't necessarily do their job as defensive linemen. So it's just easy stuff that can get fixed this week in practice. I mean, if there's a position group that you can rely on, it's Rodney Garner's group. Like, that group's going to come through this week. I have no doubt in my mind. They've done it so far this season when you've needed them to. They did it at Oklahoma. They absolutely dominated Oklahoma. They did it against Florida. They did it against Alabama. The only real outlier for me that necessarily hurt the team was Arkansas. But then again, a lot of that falls on the linebackers. And this is a week where your linebackers got a few games where they've got to play together. Jalen Smith's played more. Caleb Perry's played more. Jeremiah Tielander's played absolutely exceptional the past few weeks. So, I mean, overall, linebackers, if they do their job this week, it could be pretty helpful for Tennessee's outcome.
Yeah, Hoghead, Reese Winters, Papa J all made some good comments here talking about the linebackers. And, I mean, that's like on the second touchdown by Mississippi State. The linebackers, they're clearing out. That thing's wide open at that point. I think the linebackers, they definitely got to play their reads better. We'll see. I know that last week Ole Miss, I wanted to get those stats for Georgia last week. I'm thinking Ole Miss held Georgia down quite a bit last week. Let's see. There we go. See if I can get this box score. Player stats last week. So Georgia, their rushing game was
non-existent.
All that.
But a lot of that does fall on the weather. Ole Miss could kind of sell out to stop the run, considering you kind of have to run the ball in the weather, and considering how Carson Beck has been. Make them beat you throwing the ball if they have to. And Carson Beck hasn't proved that he can do that yet this season. So it definitely – there was a lot of things that went Ole Miss's way on this past Saturday.
Yeah, it looks like Georgia had right at 60 yards rushing. I'm counting right, which is, Georgia's normally a pretty strong rushing team.
Yeah. Along
the way. 245 yards of offense last week. And that's not a Georgia offense. That's the thing Tennessee's going to have to watch out for this week is, Georgia's had their number in every aspect of the game. since Josh Heupel's been there. So will that change this week? We'll talk about that here in a few minutes. We talked about defensive line, that run game. I'm curious because it's 2 games in a row on it. But at the same time, you held Mississippi State to under 100 yards passing. That's pretty good. And I felt like, you mentioned that defensive line, Rodney Garner's group's going to do it. I did think they started to take that game over late. Do you agree with that?
Oh, they definitely did. Watching them in the fourth quarter for sure. That was awesome to see. Kind of the starters were back in there, and they completely dominated them.
Yeah, Van Buren I thought they'd had trouble at times getting to him. They were lighting him up in that fourth quarter. He was probably glad for that game to be over. I know it's 33-14. I don't even remember what the spread is. I don't care. It was still one. To me, even, there was a little bit, I think, when we realized Gaston Moore was not in. When we realized Gaston Moore was going to be playing, and then you had, turnover on downs, if I'm not mistaken. Mississippi State starts driving. It's like, okay, this could get a little interesting. And then Jason Jenkins, who I thought did an awesome job in place of Tyree West the other night, strips the ball, causes that fumble. And I think any little bit of a scare ended on that
right
one.
there.
Yeah, I think that kind of put the halt to it. Got Hamilton in the house. What's going on, Hamilton? Appreciate your generosity tonight. Let me hit this thing here real quick. If I can get it to pop up, maybe. Are we still
I've got
here?
it on
Yeah,
there.
I think.
Yeah, I got it on there.
Well, I can't get anything to load right now, so.
You broke it.
Is it mine?
I see it. I mean, I see the comment.
There we go. All right, good deal. Hamilton for $2. Thank you so much, Hamilton. Appreciate your generosity. Y'all are spot on. Thanks, Frank. Appreciate you, Hamilton. Definitely appreciate that. I'm going to hit special teams here in a minute. I thought how did you think the safeties looked the other night? To me, I thought they were kind of out of their lanes a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong on that one, but I kind of thought the safeties, I thought Christian Charles was good. The other guys, I thought hit and miss a little bit. What was your opinion on them?
On the safeties, I don't really. I haven't. I didn't pay enough attention during the game to necessarily the safety to kind of see guys out of position and stuff. And I haven't necessarily just sat down and enjoyed rewatching the game. So I don't want to say anything out of mind for the safeties, considering I'm not really sure if they played good or bad.
So you're going to play a safety here and just.
Yeah, I'm going to play a safety here.
Take one for the team. Safe about it. All right. I like it. I appreciate it. Blunt Vegas for, dadgummit, this thing not hitting tonight.
Pulled up on mine again.
I don't know if it's mine or it's got to be mine.
No, it ain't mine. I ain't got no power over here.
All right. I apologize for, there you go. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Looks like there's something going off my signal right now. I'm going to have to restart the old router after a while, it appears. But Blunt Vegas said Georgia players celebrating with Ole Miss equals priceless. I saw something about that. I think Kirby Smart called somebody an idiot or something like that.
Did you not see the video?
I didn't really catch it. No,
No.
What happened on it?
On 3, look it up. The Georgia players jumping up and down, hugging an Ole Miss fan after they're storming the field. But apparently they went to high school together. That still doesn't excuse it. You can't be smiling, laughing, jumping around with an opposing fan after you just got beat, especially at a team like Georgia. But if I saw a Tennessee player doing that after the Arkansas game, I would have been livid.
Oh my gosh.
I would have that kid. I would have personally drove to Anderson training facility and kicked that man off the team myself.
I have not seen that. I'll have to look that up here in a minute. One thing I did, the biggest thing I like, not one thing I like, the biggest thing, the special teams actually looked special. Again,
Mm-hmm.
Reese Winters, I hope you're still in there. This one's for you, buddy. I know Reese has been on it. He said, if we'd have had a returner back at Arkansas, we don't lose that game. I agree with you on that one. Why did it take so long for Boo Carter to become the returner on this team?
I have no idea. I think it was rotational things. It took kind of Squirrel getting banged up and also realizing that he can't do jack squat back there returning punts. It was Jamad McCoy talking in the press conference about returning a kick, or Jamad McCoy just in general. I don't really know why he even got considered for the returning punt spot because he has done nothing returning punts. And then throwing in Boo Carter late in the Alabama game out of nowhere. And it's like, okay, you're giving me personally as a fan a heart attack. I mean, this is a true freshman catching punch in the biggest part of the game, and they didn't really go with him after that. So I'm not sure. It's just definitely a shock to see him back there that much every time, because every punt they went with him back there, and every punt the rest of the season he's going to be back there. So that was definitely pretty shocking for me, and considering the fact that he did that good. I mean, he played great. He gave us some scares with not calling the fair catches, but even when he didn't call fair catch, he still managed to get a yard or two. So
he was a stud in the punt return game, had an interception. Boo Carter, to me, I don't know who played a better game the other night. Jason Jenkins was up there. I mean, it's Boo's the man. Boo can play. Boo was great as a punt returner. It was nice to have a return game again. Max Gilbert, your boy, bounced back 4 for 4 the other night. That's going to be needed this week because that's huge. My big fear. That was my big fear because we talked about it. Has anybody else really even been practicing field goals? And, Heupel stuck with him. Gilbert looked good. The first one, I thought he was going to miss it when it took off. On TV, it looked like it was hooking, and then it was kind of a line drive. But after that, I mean, that seemed to get his confidence going, and he looked really good the rest of the night.
Yeah.
That could be huge this week.
I think the best thing about his performance, watching it live, wasn't actually Gilbert. It was watching Mike Eckler on the sideline losing his mind every time he made a kick. Like, it was beautiful. He'd run out. He'd be fist pumping everywhere. He'd be banging. And he was losing his mind every time he made a kick, running around, high-fiving people, punching people like he always does. So it was nice to see the support that Gilbert had from his coach.
Mike Eckler. I like Mike Eckler. There was some time earlier this year I said, his unit, this ain't a Mike Eckler unit. But last week, it most definitely looked like it. Maybe when him and Tony Vitello's down there messing around for the game,
that helps.
Maybe that got something going the other night. Speaking of Tony Vitello,
you had the
hang on, Matt.
Boobs.
Yep, got some boobs on the screen. Me and Tony shining out for it. But got to go down Friday night, watched Game 2 of the Orange and White Fall World Series. And we just so happened to get lucky afterwards that we were in the little restaurant part. And there was Vitello walking around. My buddy I was with was like salivating and having convulsions. And everything. He's like, we got to go meet him. And so we did. And he was pretty cool. Pretty nice guy. We didn't chat him up long. I mean, those guys, people are trying to get at him left and right, but appreciate him taking a minute to just a brief chat and a picture with us. Pretty cool to get to meet the GOAT right there. And, everybody on here got to see mine and Tony's boobs. So there you go. Yep. You got it for free tonight, guys. So super chats should come rolling in after that one. So, because you never know what you'll get on here at this point. But Mississippi State, we're going to wrap up on that one. Offense, good things, got to get out of its own way. Defense, I mean, at the end, they were dominant. Special teams were special again. I'm going to go ahead and flip it. I'm not even going to ask is there anything I've forgotten because I probably have, but it's the big week. It's Georgia week, and there is – how much is riding on this game?
For Georgia, everything. For Tennessee, a lot, but definitely not as much.
Is it must win for Tennessee?
No, not for Tennessee. For Georgia, yes. For Tennessee, no.
I was really hoping Georgia would win last week to come
Me too.
in. Now, like you said, they're talking blackout. They're talking what game days in town for it. SEC Nation's in town. Georgia's coming off of a loss. They've not played at home. What, in like a month now?
It's been a while.
Yeah. Nice. I live in North Georgia. This is a big one for me. I that's the way I'm down here in South Carolina now. So I definitely get that. And Papa J's fired up. He is ready to go. Can't say it any better myself right there. But we may talk. I see some of you ask about Kessling. Yeah, shout out to Bob Kessling. Next last SEC home game, and then he's got one more home game finished out the season. Hopefully Bob Kessling's career ends the same way John Ward's football career does, and Tennessee hoisting that national title later on. But this playoff talk, man, we're going to talk playoffs then. I'm probably going to get a little amped up tonight. But this Georgia game, Tennessee goes down. As of right now, assuming Nico plays, how do you feel about this one this week? Does Tennessee have a chance?
I mean, going into the season, this was a loss. This was chalked up as a loss. It was Georgia's going to be a powerhouse again this season, and Tennessee's going to be really good. I just didn't see the chance or a possibility where Tennessee would win the game or even necessarily keep it a one-score game. But now that we're here, Georgia's lost 2 games. They've had putrid quarterback play from Carson Beck. The locker room's kind of looks like it's getting lost week by week. They're definitely in a totally different position than I expected them to be. This is definitely a game for them that they know that they have to win, so they're going to play a lot better considering that. I 1,000% believe that Tennessee can win the game. I mean, I feel like they will win the game. Can't say a score because I don't know a score, but I do personally believe Tennessee will win the game. And that's just because of how Georgia's offense has been. They only scored 1 offensive touchdown against Ole Miss, and that was because they got a interception on the first drive and they had a short field. And they did nothing after that. And there's been times where they haven't done anything. I mean, Florida's defense shut them down for the majority of the game. And they got multiple interceptions on Carson Beck. So honestly, the game falls on Carson Beck. If he plays good, Georgia wins. If he plays like he has been, there's a real good opportunity for Tennessee to win the ballgame.
What do you think is going to be the key to making him make mistakes?
Pressure. You get pressure. Blitz your linebackers. Arian Carter, Jeremiah Thielander hitting the man in his mouth. And then James Pierce Jr. being the threat that he is on the outside. He doesn't even have to get home. I mean, double teams, throwing a tight end over there with him, taking guys out of the pass game, taking guys out of the run game because they have to focus on him. And that allows other guys to eat. And it'd also be a huge help this week if we got Tyree West back, just because we've seen him multiple games this season where he has been a game wrecker.
If you're Tennessee, would you take the same philosophy that, well, I mean, I don't know what Ole Miss philosophy was, but they obviously held Georgia 59 yards rushing, and it kind of put it more on Beck. Would you do that again, take their run game away, or would you, kind of go the opposite? Would you see if you, I don't know, would you, I guess, try to take Beck, the pass game, away? How would you play him this week?
I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, if you think about the one example that we have in 2022 when we played them, Stetson Bennett beat us that game through the air. And then also him getting outside of the pocket. Like, he single-handedly beat us because we tried to stop the run and they had guys open down the field and they made the plays because of Stetson Bennett. And they don't have that anymore with Carson Beck. It's crazy that Stetson Bennett's a 50 times better quarterback than Carson Beck is, but it's what it is. Like, Georgia's offense with Carson Beck hasn't been nowhere near what we expected him to be. So you have to sell out for the run. If you can stop the run, I'm okay with losing the game because Carson Beck plays the one good game of the season against us. because that's what we've come accustomed to as Tennessee fans. Quarterback that's played dog crap all season is going to play good for one game, and that's going to be against Tennessee. So I'd rather get beat like that than them just to run it down our throat the entire game and keep the time of possession for 30 minutes.
You think our corners can match up with Georgia's receivers?
Absolutely. Considering if I read the stat, I'm like 90% sure it's true. Their longest pass play on the season is 29 yards. That doesn't scare me. You don't even really have to have good corners if that's their longest pass play of the season, because that's on Carson Beck not hitting guys, and then their wide receivers just not getting open.
Let's check it and see. I am curious about that because I've not been as much on it.
I think if they have a long pass play, or a longer pass play, it's because they do some trickery stuff that we've seen them do in the past. They did it last year where they put the wide receiver in motion, tossed it to him, and stinking wide receiver, whoever it was, threw the touchdown pass. Like we've seen that from Georgia in big games in the past when they played Tennessee. Is they kind of got to pull something out of their sleeve in order to get a touchdown or get a play, which is kind of. I thought it was embarrassing the times that I've seen it. Like last year, I thought that was pretty embarrassing that they had to have a wide receiver screen or a wide receiver jet sweep turn into a pass play touchdown from your wide receiver. Like that to me was embarrassing. You're the number one team in the nation. You shouldn't have to pull out trick plays or gimmicky plays to beat Tennessee, considering everybody calls Tennessee a gimmick team or a gimmick offense when Josh Heupel does none of that. There's no trick plays in Josh Heupel's offense. We haven't seen it this season. We haven't seen it last season. Last time we've seen anything close to that was 2022.
I would even venture to say, based on that point, Heupel has lacked creativity.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty straight to the point. I mean,
it is.
When they line up short yardage, you know what's coming.
Yeah.
I mean, they may occasionally bootleg it or something, but it's normally they're going up the middle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
weird.
That's kind of what it is. Georgia's got Smith's got a long of 55, Dylan Bell 67. Maybe that's just here recently that they have. Because Beck, let's see, 17 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 14 sacks. That's where Tennessee's got to get in there. I mean, he's thrown for right at 2,500 yards. So, I mean, yardage has been there for the most part. It wasn't last week. It's those interceptions, and Tennessee's got to make those hurt if they're able to get them. And, this rushing game of Georgia's, the big things, you can't let them go off this week. They can't all of a sudden have their big game on the season. I mean, just in comparison, Tennessee's over, 2,000 yards on the season. Georgia's barely over 1,000. So, I mean, there's not much comparison on that. Keys to it. So, does Nico have to play to win this game?
Yeah. You aren't winning this game if Gaston Moore starts, and you aren't winning this game if Nico plays bad. You have to get a good game from Nico for us to win, in my opinion. I mean, it's still Georgia at the end of the day. I don't care how strugglesome their struggles have been. It's still Georgia at the end of the day. It's at home. It's a night game, and they have to win this game for their season to still be alive. So Nico does have to play good.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen what they did against Texas. Went on the road and beat a good Texas team. Obviously, can Tennessee get over these road woes this week? Other than Kentucky and Vanderbilt, when they've gone on the road at night, they have absolutely pissed down their leg.
Yep.
And filled the bed full. I mean, that's just all it is to it. Is this the week they finally get over that? Or are we going to be questioning next Monday night? Or are we going to be still what happens to this team on the road?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the week that they can finally get rid of these road woes?
I think if they can keep it, let's say they lose the game and they keep it competitive, that gets rid of it for me. And I think it's completely gone if you win. There's a lot of different factors that go into it, and I think this week you learn in the first half of what the direction of this game's going to go. Is the haunting of the road games going to hit us again on Saturday night? And we learned that in the first half. That's how it's been in the past. Is okay. You see in the first half, Tennessee's just not playing good. Like Tennessee's going to lose this game. And then it of course gets away from us in the second half. But you learn in the first half if your team's there and ready to play or not. We learned in the first quarter, really.
I think we have gotten a good idea. Those games where we missed opportunities in the first half, and you're like, man, these are probably going to come back to bite us later on. And I think they've got to. I think it would be big if they started quick this week.
Yeah,
I'm like you. I mean, I think Nico has to play. I just think Nico's upside. I think it's a night and day difference with Gaston Moore in there, and I think there is a game possibly if your defense is really wreaking havoc and shutting Georgia down. If Gaston Moore could just, if he does play, if your run game's going, Gaston Moore can just hit his open throws. He doesn't have to do anything spectacular. I think you can win a low-scoring football game. But I'm like you on it. If Gaston Moore's playing, I'm not going to have my hopes up on it.
The thing
Nico
is
plays. Go ahead.
The thing is with that though is if Gaston Moore's in there, I mean that's Georgia what their bread and butter is. They're putting their heads down and they're coming after us. They're blitzing and they're blitzing and they're blitzing. And you're relying on a Josh Heupel quarterback that's not necessarily played to kind of make plays. And we haven't really seen Josh Heupel let a quarterback loose since Hendon Hooker. He's kind of had some of the same exact play calls over and over again, the wide receiver screens and stuff. And if they're coming up to stop the run because Gaston Moore's in and we're just throwing screens, we're not moving the ball because they're going to be in our face, even on the screens. And then another thing with that is the reason why Tennessee had open plays against Mississippi State when Gaston Moore was in there is just because he likes to throw the ball downfield. He just likes to sling the stinking football. And Heupel's just not going to let him do that against Georgia. He's going to scare the crap out of him. You take all these deep shots. It may be Merklinger because Heupel can't trust him to take the deep shots downfield. We learned that against Alabama. So it's just one of those things is if he comes in, I think Georgia could very easily blow Tennessee out because it's just go up and stop the run. And it wouldn't be too hard to stop Dylan Sampson when you can put basically 9 guys in the box because I just don't think Gaston Moore can make enough plays to even put a few scores on the board for Tennessee.
Would you trust Tennessee's receivers to pick up the slack and get open?
No, they haven't yet.
Yeah, I don't think
so
I would. I agree.
Expect that now with Gaston Moore at quarterback? No, I definitely wouldn't expect that.
I want to hit this thought here in just a few minutes. Hold on. This is a good question here. I know where I'm going on this. 60
Under.
points over or under.
Under.
Yeah, I'm going under too. I don't see it. If I tell you Saturday night that Tennessee holds Georgia under 20, does Tennessee win that football game?
I'm not sure. I mean, Heupel hasn't scored over 20 points on Georgia yet. So why does it happen this year considering we've seen the struggles that the offense has had? And with the quarterback that we don't really know the extent of his injury. We think he's playing. But even if he is playing, is it 2 hits and he's out? Or is he going to be scared crapless like we've seen him past this season of him looking like he's scared? And you don't necessarily know what to expect. I mean, Tennessee could hold them under 20 and still only score 3 points. So I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know if Tennessee wins the game if they keep them under 20, just because I don't know what to expect from the offense.
Yeah, I mean, we lost against Arkansas and held them under 20. So yeah. I agree on it. What position to you would you utilize the most? Because I got to think Georgia's going to gear up to stop Dylan Sampson, and they're going to try to make, whether it's Nico or whether it's Gaston Moore, I got to think they're going to beat them or make them beat them. Mm-hmm. So at that point, what position group needs to step up?
I think if you're relying on making the quarterback beat them, it's not a group that's going to pop out on the stat sheet. It's got to be your tight ends. They've got to block whenever you run out 12 personnel, or 11 personnel whenever you only have one tight end, whatever it is. Your tight ends got to block and they got to help. And if your tight ends can block and do a great job, which is what we've seen the past few weeks, is the tight ends been excellent in the run game and in the pass blocking game. that helps Tennessee out tremendously. But then again, after that, it goes on your wide receivers. And also, mainly, in my opinion, it falls on your slot wide receiver. Because if you got a quarterback that hasn't hit a lot of throws, you're having quick out routes or you're having slants across the middle. And you gotta have a receiver that's getting open and making the catches. And there's been times this year when your two slot guys and Squirrel and Nimrod have both just not caught the easy passes. And they've been in the slot. So tight ends for sure is who has to play good. Tennessee's in a great position to win the game if your tight ends play good, not even touching the stat sheet. But then again, after that, it falls on different guys, different responsibility for different people.
So you're saying this is the Mike Matthews coming out party?
No. I mean, I wish, but until I see him in there all the time, I see him getting the reps, but the ball's not going his way, or if the ball does go his way, the wide receiver blows a block and he gets blown up. So,
other than the environment, other than how Tennessee's road woes have been, is there anything about Georgia that scares you this weekend? Taking the the environment, the rowdy crowd, all that out of the equation, which you have to factor it in. But as far as Georgia, the football team itself, is there anything about you that really jumps out that you think could be a big advantage for them?
I think if you take out all the other factors other than football of just playing it on the field, because there's definitely a lot of stuff mentally that you could think about that's not just how you're playing on the field. But I'd still say their defense. I mean, their front seven. That's how they've made their dynasty, as you can call it, over the past few years, is because of their defense. So, I mean, if Tennessee's in a position where there's not much success throwing the ball and you have to lean on the run and they're loading the box, that's kind of the Georgia we've seen in the past of how they shut down Tennessee. So I think that's one thing that scares me in this matchup is their defense coming alive like they did against Texas and then just completely winning the game because of how good their defense is.
Yeah, I think I just can't see Tennessee coming out when, based on how they played this year. I can't see them all of a sudden having their breakout game this week. I just don't. I think if you're going to beat them, you're going to have to beat them ugly. And that goes back to, we talked about the special teams. You've got to win the special teams game this week. Gilbert, when he gets the opportunity, he's got to hit. Boo Carter's got to make something happen if we can force punts. Jackson Ross is probably going to be busy this week. Mm-hmm. He can't have any shanks. Mm-mm. This ain't the week for the shanks. He's got to be on his game.
It's also whenever he does punt the ball and whenever he does hit a good ball, you got to tackle the guy. Florida was in the game against us because we let Contain loose and we let one guy and DK beat us on punt returns. And that was honestly, in my opinion, one of the main reasons why that game was even close is because of how good Florida played on special teams, especially in punt returns.
Yeah, I'm still really kind of surprised and can't believe we won that game because I thought Florida outplayed us in a lot of aspects of that game. I'd love to see this. Boo take one to the house this week. Beck can throw for yards. We know that. They've got to force the turnovers. That's got to be big. And not only force them, you've got to get something out of them as well. And it can't be a case of we're driving and we turn it over. Georgia gets down, we force a turnover, on the 1 yard line and stuff like. I mean, those are great, obviously. Don't get me wrong, but they've got to be at other points of the game. I'm curious to see what kind of playbook Tim Banks draws up this week because I'm hypo. If I'm Banks, I've got to look back over the last few years, especially definitely 2022, because I think that was probably the most competent matchup of the two. You've got to look back and see where did they smoke us at. And I know there's a talent discrepancy back then. I don't think it's as much of one now. Mm-hmm. Tennessee's got a much better defense now, but Tennessee had a much better offense then. Georgia still got talent, and they're hit and miss this year. I think you got to go in preparing. You're going to see the best Georgia this week. Crowd's going to be fired up. This team's going to be fired up. Like you said, I think they lose their out this week. I don't Yeah, I don't.
Okay.
They can't make a case for them at 3 losses. I just don't see it.
I mean, I still feel like there's a case that they could get in with 3 losses, but just considering who they are. But I think, in my opinion, they're out. But I still think there's some dominoes that could fall to lead them to sneak in at the 12th spot or 11, depending on however this format actually is with the group of 5 team that wins or their conference, and like the Boise State at 12. I'm not sure if they get the 12th spot or the 5 spot or whatever the heck's going on with the playoff.
Yeah. If Tennessee wins this week, have they punched their ticket in, you think?
I still think the Vandy game looms large. It would be extremely hard to say Tennessee beat Alabama and Georgia in the same year, but they just lost to Vanderbilt.
Oh,
I mean, considering how the media is right now, considering how the media is right now, Tennessee winning against Georgia, in my opinion, puts them in. But with the media, in the media's eyes, no. Considering they still have to beat Vandy.
I told you it was coming. I told you.
You did.
I told you this was coming. So just bear with me for about 30 seconds, guys, because let me find it. Yeah, we're going to take us off here a minute.
You're going to pull those pistols and whistle Dixie.
It's time to pull those pistols. Ain't whistling no Dixie. It's the Outlaw. You gave a good segue to the Outlaw tonight. You may mention it right where I was looking to go on this. Playoffs. The media right now has got this agenda. A 3-loss Alabama can get in. A 3-loss Georgia can get in. But by God, Tennessee's got to win out to get in. Somebody's got to explain to me what all this is. Indiana, oh yeah, Indiana can lose a game or two they're in. Penn State can beat nobody and get in. But for whatever reason, Tennessee is the one. It doesn't matter if they beat Georgia. They're going to make a case for them to not get in. I've been sick to death for the last couple of weeks on this. They're going to try to make a case for somehow, some way for Alabama to get in over Tennessee. Even though Tennessee beat Alabama fair and square, and that score I did not think was indicative of how much they dominated Alabama. But yet, here we go, and like usual, the media is just totally forgetting that Tennessee beat them. It's just like 2022 when it come down to the end. If it would have come down to Bama or Tennessee, Bama was getting in over Tennessee with the same record, even though Tennessee got them. At what freaking point now do we use some common sense around here and the head-to-head matter? I get it if we got 5, 10, and 2 teams that have all kind of played and lost or something, that then it plays out. But I'm getting sick and freaking tired of these committee members, these media members, pushing this bunch of bullshit that Bama, who lost to Tennessee, should be in over them if that's what they're pushing. How does that make sense?
Doesn't make sense. It makes no sense to me. I mean, they are denying logic, they are denying common sense, and they are proving the fact that half of them don't even have enough brain cells to even have the job that they have. And honestly, don't understand how they're making the paychecks that they are to get the platforms that they are when they don't know a darn thing.
Somebody's got to tell me how a 3-loss Alabama should get in yet, but if Tennessee loses one more game, they're out. I mean, is it because Alabama beat Georgia and because they just beat LSU this week? I mean, that was pretty impressive, but LSU is not that good.
It's the Bama bias. And if that's the case, if Alabama gets in as a 3-loss team, Nick Saban's on the playoff committee. You can't
Yeah.
change my mind. Nick Saban's on the playoff committee, or he's pulling straws on the playoff committee.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all because I just think it's odd. I think it's odd. Now, if you go in, you've got Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee. Well, Texas A&M can't both be 2 losses. Well, they could if A&M beats Texas. That's because Texas has one. If you have 5 or 6 SEC teams at 2 losses, it's going to get pretty interesting. Now, I can't remember who else plays down the stretch, but I don't know. Any situation that puts Bama in over Tennessee with the same record, I'm going to have a problem with it. There's just no other way around it. The bottom line for Tennessee, you win out, you take care of business on it. You win your regular season games, you get to SEC championship, I think you're in. It's just going to be then a matter of, are you getting a first round bye, or are you one of the teams playing in that 5 through 12 at that point? I really feel like, especially after what South Carolina did to Vanderbilt this weekend, I think that Tennessee can do the same to them. But we'll see. We will see on that one. And South Carolina, they've got 3 losses right now. But, man, I would venture to say they're one of the top 5 teams in the conference right now. They're playing good football. They should have beat LSU. The officials took that game away from them. You can't convince me, and I'm not a South Carolina fan at all. It hurts my feelings none at all when they lose. But they got the shaft in that game, and they could have beaten Alabama. Some say
they should have beat Alabama. You're going to get me pissed thinking about that game.
So, yeah, there it is. But before we move on to playoffs, do you want to make a prediction this week?
Said I wasn't, but you got me thinking. Let's run it back. Let's have the year of the 24-17 outcome. Let's have Tennessee win 24-17, just like we did against Alabama.
Let's do it. I like it. I'm setting this one out. I'm setting it out because every time I've gone to a Tennessee-Georgia game, Tennessee's lost. I feel like every time I pick a Tennessee-Georgia game, Tennessee lost. I'm setting it out this week, guys. I'm going to set this one out. So I do think this is a winnable, very winnable game if Tennessee does not self-inflict this week. I think that's going to be the big deal with it. And maybe I'm not giving Georgia enough credit because they can turn it on. But I think Tennessee's defense can cause some problems if we don't all of a sudden have that game. Arkansas, I'm hoping, was that game this year. I'm hoping that was it. But we'll see how it goes. Here's a good question here, and this is going to segue into the playoffs. Georgia Tech upset Miami. To me, that means the ACC is getting one team in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that just took care of the ACC getting 2 teams in. What do you think?
I had them only getting one team in anyway, the conference champion. I mean, the Clemson loss to Louisville basically kicked out the opportunity for two teams to get in. So now it's kind of like, okay, Miami or SMU, and that's really the only 2 teams that can get in at this point, which it stinks to see a Miami team get in considering they're not that good. They just got dominated by Georgia Tech. So ACC to me is
Virginia Tech got the shaft against them.
Well, yeah. I mean, Miami should probably be a 4-loss team right now, in my opinion. They've just got calls. They've gotten lucky. Haven't played anybody. And they've kind of just got the luck fall away whenever they've needed it to. And then that's also kind of what you need to have a miracle season. Same thing happened for TCU. But this team, Miami, does not compare to the 2022 TCU team at all. Miami will get exposed against any team they play just because how putrid their defense is, and the offensive line isn't necessarily good. They don't really have a running game. Quarterback can only do so much, and I honestly don't think Cam Ward's the guy to pull you through, considering he doesn't necessarily have the game takeover ability that Max Duggan did. That's what I'm comparing it to right now. Max Duggan could put his shoulder down, run over some guys, and win some games for you. I just don't see Cam Ward doing that. He's pretty much just protecting his draft stock at this point.
Could 4 Big Ten teams get in? You think that's possible?
I think right now, 4 Big Ten teams are in. I think it's 4 Big Ten teams and 4 SEC or 5 SEC teams get in right now if I had to make an official prediction.
Would Indiana beating Ohio State knock Ohio State out?
No. Brand, look at Notre Dame. Ohio State and Notre Dame's both getting in no matter what happens because of their brand. Notre Dame isn't going to get in when they lose to Army. I'm already saying that one. They will lose to Army. I think it's next week or the week after that.
So they do play Army?
They play Army. It says it's a home game for Notre Dame, but they do play that game in Yankee Stadium. So it's not actually a home game for Notre Dame. It's like 7 o'clock on Peacock. Army will win that game. I'm a huge Army guy. And if that gets Army into the college football playoff, I love it. I love Army. Great program. How could you not root for a American football team? So,
yeah,
in my opinion, Army beats them. That puts Notre Dame out. Ohio State gets in with 2 losses because of their brand. So, we'll see.
Does a 2-loss Tennessee team get in? Are they guaranteed to get in, do you think?
Yes, just because they have the win against Alabama. And Alabama is who Alabama is. Alabama just beat the ever-living crap out of LSU in a game that was hyped up to be a lot more than it actually was. And Alabama's still Alabama. I mean, they've beat Georgia, and they've taken care of business basically every other game except the nightmare against Vanderbilt, which I don't necessarily know if Tennessee could necessarily beat Alabama if Alabama didn't lose to Vanderbilt and kind of have the trains fall off the track for a few weeks, because Alabama right now is a totally different team than when they played us. I'm not saying that right now Alabama beats Tennessee on a neutral field. I'm just saying that they're definitely a different team, and it's definitely a different game if they played right now. I would still, of course, pick Tennessee, but I just think Alabama, they kind of had a few bad weeks, and they're kind of right now playing as we expected Alabama to be.
If you're Tennessee, and you lose one more, would you rather beat Georgia and lose to Vandy, or would you just rather go ahead and lose to Georgia and take care of business on the last 2?
Go ahead and lose to Georgia. They won't punish.
I think that loss looks a lot better than.
They won't punish us if you keep it within the spread. I don't think they punish us. In my opinion, I'll go ahead and say it. The rankings next Tuesday night, if it's on next Tuesday or even next Monday night in the college football rankings, that determines, in my opinion, if Tennessee makes the playoff. Because if Tennessee's sitting at 8 next week, they're not jumping down to 13. Tennessee's sitting at 11 or 12 next week, you can be scared. If it's 9 or under, Tennessee's in the playoff. 10's kind of what I would expect Tennessee to be at if they lose this week to Georgia, with the only opportunity to go up. In my opinion, I don't see them boosting Tennessee down. If Tennessee's in 11 and 12, expect Tennessee to kind of get possibly pushed out. If they're 10 or lower, I firmly believe Tennessee will be in the playoff.
Yeah, I think you got to factor in, of course, the ACC champs in. Big 12 is going to be what? BYU or Colorado at this point. And man, I mean, anybody can say what they want about Dion. You got to give them credit. He's turned that. They're playing good, man. Got to give them the credit. Obviously, your SEC champion, your Big 12 champion, or Big 10 champion, gets in. Let's say that Oregon. Tennessee's in first place right now. Who's to say Tennessee doesn't win it? I mean, we'll see. Let's say Oregon, Tennessee, or Oregon will go Texas just for sake of an argument on Tennessee. BYU and Miami. Let's say those 4. After that, I mean, to me, it's probably Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana. Then you're getting into SEC team. I mean, if Army wins out, goes undefeated, they're probably making a case. If not, I think Notre Dame's in, and then it's probably SEC teams after that. Yeah, I think it just depends on who. I mean, Texas, if they beat A&M, they're going to be in. If A&M beats Texas, man, it's going to get really interesting at that point. Penn State's one, I'm curious. So they're at Minnesota. That is a very tricky game for them.
Yep.
And to me, if they lose that one, I think there's a good chance they're out. But it's going to be interesting down the stretch. If I'm Tennessee, I'm going in. I just want to take care of business. Tennessee wins out if they finish the regular season 11-1, they're in. I think it doesn't matter what happens in the SEC championship then.
Yeah, if they're 11-1, that's a lock at that point.
Yeah.
That's a
Minnesota.
Lock
Yeah. I think any 11-1 SEC team, which Tennessee and Texas is the only chance at that at this point. I think both of those, if they play each other in the SEC championship at 11-1, they're both in. And then, we'll see after that because A&M's got 2 losses, right? Because Notre Dame beat them.
Yep.
Ole Miss has got 2 losses. I'm not sure who Ole Miss has left. Alabama's got 2 losses. I mean, I'm not sure who they have left either.
I know they play at Oklahoma. And then Auburn, of course.
Both of them are crap. I don't think anything's going on there.
And then they'll have a cupcake. So,
yeah. So the bottom line, I think, for Tennessee, the bottom line is win, you're in. Lose, it's going to get interesting. The Georgia, I'm like you. The Georgia, if you're going to lose one, I'd rather go ahead and lose to Georgia. Take care of it. That one loss is going to be frowned upon a whole lot less than if you lose to Vanderbilt. It just is. If I'm Tennessee and that I get to Kent State, I run it up on the first half, I get them out, now I start preparing for Vanderbilt right then and there.
You mean
that
UTEP?
Vanderbilt, who did I say, Kent State?
Yeah, you said Kent State.
Yeah, we'll go UTEP. Let's go UTEP on that seat. Yep, I run it up on UTEP. I get ready for Vanderbilt because I don't think there's any way, shape, or form you can lose that game. I just don't. I think that game could be, definitely if you were to lose this week and you lose to Vandy, you're out. You lose to Vandy, even if you win this week, it's going to get interesting, in my opinion.
I think Tennessee should have put up 40 against Mississippi State because of that. They look at the scoreboards. You had a great opportunity there in the last 2 minutes. You had it was within maybe even the 5-yard line with the opportunity to run another play and put one in.
Yeah, buddy factor.
I don't care about the buddy factor. I don't care about the disrespect factor or the respect factor. I think you just got to. I don't care. He's your friend. Honestly, don't disrespect them. You have to help your case, and you really do help your case if you put 40 on the board there. So I don't understand the being friends and everything. If he's going to be a coach at Tennessee for a long time, the only friendship you're ruining there is the possibility of him being your offense coordinator somewhere down the road. That's it.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. And that same thing with buddies on staff might be something that has to be visited at some point as well. So, yeah, if you're there, if you're going to play buddy ball in the SEC, that's going to get you about one place at some point. And it's probably not where you want to go. But any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up tonight?
Nope. I think we've hit it all.
We covered a lot in an hour and 10 minutes. Record time for us tonight. So we'll be, just to recap, going to have a lot of live shows this week. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, Saturday, probably a couple of them. And then Sunday, men's basketball as well. You're not going to Athens this weekend, are you?
No, I didn't want to do that.
All right. Well, we may see an appearance from Kerry Saturday night then after the game, hopefully. So,
we may.
So hopefully we can get that done. Hopefully we'll be on here celebrating a big dub Saturday night. Lots to come this week. I hope you guys will tune in with that. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for tuning in. If you're one of those that you've watched, you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Help push this thing up to 3,000 for the end of the year. We got about 839 to go last I looked. So, but it is definitely possible if we can hit a big streak along the way. He's Kerry. I'm Frank. This is the House Foreign Sports Channel. Thanks again for all your support. Thanks for tuning in. Last but most certainly not least, go Vols.